Welcome to Paderborn University. So this is going to be an introduction for exchange students, incoming exchange students, coming for perhaps the current upcoming semester or future semester. Normally we would hold this information session in person, but of course due to coronavirus, many things are virtual, including this. But of course on the bright side, this means that now there's a static video, which you could rewatch as many times as you need to in case you miss something. And you could also refer to this video in the future, of course. So this session is really geared towards the Faculty of Computer Science, Electrical Engineering, and Math, but in principle, most of the data is kind of applicable to pretty much any faculty in the school, or in the university, more accurately. And again, this video was recorded on October 15th, 2020, but I've made an effort to try and make it kind of future-proof. So most of the information in this talk should remain relevant for a number of years moving forward. Okay, so let's start by just your main contacts at the school, right? So the main contacts you're going to deal with is, I would argue the more important one is the international office. Okay, so you can go to the international office webpage and look up kind of who are the current contacts for dealing with incoming exchange students, right? So here is the exchange students incoming. Right now, those people are Martina Schrader and Nicole Struzek, and they deal with slightly different things. Okay, so I've listed what they do. Their contact information is here. Again, in the future, if the staff happens to kind of shift around who's in charge of what, you could always find the right names just by going to the international office, look for incoming exchange students. So myself, I'm a professor here in the Department of Computer Science, and I am basically in charge of the exchange program for our faculty. Okay, so that covers CS, Electrical Engineering, and Math. Okay, and my email is here, and this is my office number. Okay, so that's everything I want to tell you about contacts. Again, in the worst case, you just contact one of us, and probably your primary point of contact for most things will be Nicole. Okay, especially while you're at the university. Okay, so just a very quick overview, right? What does the city look like? What are kind of the main points of interest for you? So here in the middle is kind of like what I like to call the teardrop, right? This is kind of the old city of Paderborn, okay? And so the University of Paderborn is roughly located in the bottom right over here. However, part of the university, of course, especially the CS department, is split, right? Half of it is here on campus. The other half is all the way up here in the Heinz Nixdorf Institute. And, here I've just tried to give you a sense of how far things are. So for example, if you want to bike the distance, which is doable, I've done it. It does get a little bit tricky because here there's a bit of an uphill, but otherwise it's quite doable, under 20 minutes. So you can bike the distance, especially in the warmer months. Otherwise, I'll talk more about getting around the city on a later slide. But this is just to give you a rough sense of where the main things are and how you get from one point to the other. Right, here, by the way, is where the main train station is, which as you can see is just a couple of minutes walk to the center of the city. Okay, good. So these 2 points, the Heinz Nixdorf Institute and the campus, are the primary points you'll be concerned with. In terms of transportation, the Google Maps right now, as far as I'm aware, does not have Paderborn's bus data. That's completely fine because you can get that bus data both in German and in English. So if you want it in German, just go to the website for the bus service, which is padersprinter.de. And in English, download basically this Padersprinter app, which is either on Android or iOS. And I've used this app many times. It's fantastic, right? It tells you when the buses are coming and gives you all the routes, etc., etc. Okay. Cycling, as I mentioned, is also a good option. We've got many lovely bike paths in the city and lots of nice green spaces. Okay, so do make sure you enjoy that while you're here. Bus lines. Okay, so the main form of public transport within the city is bus lines. And so if you want to go to main campus, to the Heinz Nixdorf Institute, which is where I'm typically based, for example, which is why it says here, there are 2 ways you can do it via the bus. Kind of the more standard way, if you will, is you basically connect through the main train station. Okay, so what's called the Hauptbahnhof. Okay, so you first take one of these bus lines, for example, 49 or 68. That'll take you to the main station. And then you take a connection from there to go to the Museumsforum stop. Okay, so this is the exact one you want to stop at. That will stop basically in front of the Heinz Nixdorf Museumsforum, right, which is attached to the Heinz Nixdorf Institute. So that kind of runs more or less all the time. However, when the university's lecture periods are running, okay, I really stress this, this is only during the lecture periods, there's another line, okay, it's called the Uni line, UNI, and that is actually a direct connection from campus to the Heinz Nixdorf Institute, and typically it's timed so that you can kind of switch between campuses easily, so you can catch kind of lectures that occur between the two locations. Okay, but again, this one only runs during the lecture periods. It runs like every hour or two or something like this, so do be careful of the times. Okay. Okay, and how about transportation outside of Paderborn itself? Well, we're, of course, like most, if not all German cities, we are well connected to the rest of Germany via the Deutsche Bahn, which is a train system. And, I just want to make you aware, especially if you're not from Germany, of the various options that are available to you, right? Because, of course, while you're here, one of the purposes of an exchange is for you to immerse yourself in the culture and to kind of see what you might normally not see at home, right? So for that reason, I just want to tell you a bit about your travel options, right? If you want to save money, being students, I too was a student once. And the first primary thing is this so-called Bahncard. And this is basically like a card you can buy. It'll cost something. Like I think the 25% off card costs something like 50, 60 euros, maybe less if you're a student. I don't remember off the top of my head. And you pay that once up front, but after that, basically all your tickets, you'll get 25% off. Okay. And, usually the ones people get are 25 to, there's also a 50% off Bahncard, which of course costs more in the first place. But again, if you're a student, usually these prices to buy the card are steeply discounted. So it's really worth it to get this thing. Okay. Otherwise, what you can do is you can get these, if you want to kind of explore a region, right, you can get one of these ride all day type passes. These are called the Länder tickets. So, just Google for, Deutsche Bahn Länder ticket and it'll take you to the webpage for that. So these are within a region. And then, of course, you could also get something that's Germany-wide, and that's this ride all day pass. Okay, so this Quer durchs Land ticket. Again, you could Google this. And, I really want to stress, a common mistake is, we have different kinds of trains in Germany, right? Going from, regional trains, which, make more stops and are generally slower, to, high-speed ICE trains, which are intercity express trains. And these really go from major center to major center, if you will, and don't make so many stops. And so, the options 2 and 3 above these passes tend to be for regional trains. Okay, so you cannot go onto ICE trains with these. Okay, so do be aware of that. When you go to the websites for these, they'll explain all the requirements there. Okay, so something else I do want to make you aware of is that all Uni Paderborn students, including registered exchange students, will get something called a semester ticket. And this is valid basically throughout our entire state of Nordrhein-Westphalia, okay, which is NRW. And so this is valid on streetcars, subways, buses. It's valid on regional trains. Again, so let me stress, that does not include the high-speed ICE trains. It does include, the Regionalbahn, Regional Express, and the S-Bahn. These are still, reasonably fast trains, don't get me wrong, but they're, they'll make a lot more stops, which is what makes them ultimately slower. Okay, but they're still great for going, shorter distances. If you want to see more details, you could click this link. I checked it this morning. It still certainly works and is active. And, there's a particular paragraph for exchange students, in German, Austauschstudierende, okay? And if you need any further help, of course, the place to go to is the international office. Again, you could just Google that. They will be your point of contact for any of these types of questions. Okay, so hopefully this gives you some information about transportation both in Paderborn and outside Paderborn, and ways for you to save money, right? We've all been students, and, lucky for you, when you're a student, things like the Bahncard here are quite cheap. Do take advantage of that, okay? It will make traveling through Germany quite reasonably priced. Okay, and it's a lovely way to travel, by the way. The train is fantastic. Okay, so that's the fun stuff. Now let's get to more serious stuff, which is courses, right? So you're here to study, woohoo, right? Welcome. The main course management system we have at Paderborn is called Paul. The website for it is this here, paul.upb.de. And here you could use this to do everything from looking up courses to registering for courses, and for exams and so forth. Okay, and I'll tell you more about that in a second. So, just to give you a brief idea of how this goes, right? So if you want to check the available courses in Powell, and this you do not need to log in to Powell for this, right? So anybody could do this. So even before you arrive at Paderborn, you can do this. You go to the website for Powell, you click on the English button, unless you want to see it in German, which is of course fine. Click on the course catalog, right? Again, you don't need to do this. You don't need to sign in to do this. You click on your desired semester. Okay, so for example, winter 2020. And then you click on your faculty, you click on your department, and then you can click on something called courses in English, right? Typically, I'm assuming you want to see courses in English. If not, you don't have to click on this final link. And this will show you the courses that are available in English, both in bachelor's and master's. In principle, you can take both. Okay. So that's how you just look what's available in Powell in terms of courses. And then, of course, once you've decided what you want to take, then there's a question of how do you register for courses in Powell. Again, you're going to go into Powell, but now you want to actually log in with your credentials, of course. And then, you can follow these links, study, then current semester, course registration. Find, the course of interest that you already kind of looked up in the previous step up here. And once you find the course you want, you just click register. Okay, so this is very roughly how the process goes. Okay, and this information should be more or less kind of consistent moving forward through the years. I do want to take a moment, however, to talk about, how courses work here at Paderborn. Okay, and what are the types of courses? So, particularly for me coming from a North American background, the system here is quite different. So it is worth stressing those differences in case you're coming from a different type of system. Okay, so how do they work here? Well, we have multiple course types. Okay. So the most common course type, particularly those which exchange students will be interested in, are the first one, lecture plus lab / tutorial. Okay, in German this is Vorlesung mit Übung. Okay, so this is just your standard lecture, and so you go to lecture for a couple of hours per week, and then you'll also have an hour or two doing some sort of tutorial or physical lab, let's say. Okay, then we have seminars. Okay, and these you should really think more of an advanced grad course in some sense. This is more, it's less a lecture as it is, students will basically read research papers and present them. Okay, so this is kind of the upper end of the grad courses. And finally, we have things like project groups. Okay, and these are basically less commonly taken by exchange students. And the main reason why is because it takes a full year to complete these. So you need to be able to dedicate a full year of presence in Paderborn to do these. Okay, so typically these are not enrolled in by exchange students. I do want to mention one thing very clearly here, which is that, typically, again, we do not, you're welcome to come here. We very much enjoy having you here to do your exchange, to take master's courses. We cannot guarantee, however, a master's thesis supervisor for you here. Okay, so if your goal is to write, if you talked to me before you came, I would have told you this, of course. If your goal is to come to Paderborn to write a thesis, you need to find kind of on your own one of the faculty members here who will agree to be your supervisor. Okay, but normally, exchanges are for taking courses, right? They're not for writing theses. Just a quick heads up. So if you do want to write a thesis, don't freak out. You just need to go find somebody and make it work, right? The onus is on you. Basically, it's not on us. Okay. And let me be clear, of course, that especially, in any system, North American or European system, there's some number of credits per course, and different courses will have different numbers of credits. So you should be aware of that. So normally, when you're doing an exchange program, certainly within the European system, you're probably signed one of these learning agreements, and you know exactly what courses you're kind of here for and how many credits they'll be worth. Okay, in the German system, exams can be, either oral or written. Okay. So it really depends on the course, depends on the number of students in the course and so forth. So that's something, you should just check up in your course, maybe ask the instructor to learn more about. One thing that is super important, okay, I already told you need to register for the course, of course, to sit in on it, right, officially as a student. But you also need to register separately for the exam, okay? So registering for the course, let me really highlight this. It's not enough to write the exam and get a grade for the course, okay? If you want to get a grade for the course, you need to first register for the course, right? And then you also need to register for the exam, okay? And I think we'll see it in a second, but there's typically more than one exam period. There are typically 2 exam periods, and then you could register, say, for the first one. If you do well, then you're done and you don't need to worry about it. If you find your grade was not what you want to do better, then you could always register for the second exam offering and rewrite the exam. Okay, this is kind of part of the reasons why maybe there's a separate exam registration. Okay, and I really want to stress, talk to your instructor at the start of the term. Okay, and you have to keep in mind, right, that there could be instructors which are not entirely aware of how the exchange system works. Okay, so you're going to have to be a little bit gentle with them. Okay, most of them should know, of course, but I just tell you this as a precaution, right? So in particular, basically, be clear that you're not an international master's student, right? You're not doing your full degree here, right? Be clear that you're an exchange student here who's here for 1 or 2 semesters, and you're taking courses, right? I mean, so that's the main confusion you want to avoid. Okay. And, clarify any potential issues regarding grading you might have. And in particular, make sure you're going to be able to write the official exam if you want credit for the course, right? And so talk about this very early on with the instructor. Make sure they're aware of your situation. The instructors here are very friendly. They will do their best to accommodate your situation. Okay. Good. So these are the kinds of courses we have. Again, you should register for the course through PAL, and you also register for the exam through PAL. Okay. There will be dates for this. I think it should be coming up on the next slide at some point. But to be clear, there will be dates for registering. There will be kind of periods for registering for both the course and for the exam. And those links will come up in a second. Maybe once I get there, I'll highlight that. Okay. Just a few other links. Okay. So if you want to see courses kind of outside of PAL, I mean, all the courses are in PAL, right? Let me be clear. The courses that are being offered in a given semester. The more general kind of handbook that lists all the courses kind of ever offered, quote unquote, or in some sense, but not necessarily being offered in this particular semester, that's the so-called module handbook. Okay, and so for example, if you want the ones for computer science, here are the links. The corresponding ones in other fields you can probably just find by Googling. The master's ones are typically available in English because most of our master's courses are in English. The bachelor's courses, it's a bit more of a toss-up whether you'll get something in German or English. A lot of the ones in computer science tend to be English, but at the higher bachelor's level, I mean. But this document, therefore, is in German, right? Just to be clear. So you're more likely to find courses in German at the lower levels, particularly the first 2 years of bachelor's courses are typically all in German. Heads up. Okay. Okay. Deadlines. So all the deadlines for registration periods, as I mentioned earlier, so now's the link I was talking about, are listed in this link. Okay. Now it's only in German, but there's not much writing on this page, so you could probably just translate it very quickly. So this will list basically, for example, there will be 2 course registration periods. Okay, so 2 kind of periods during which registration in a course is open. This is typically before the courses start. In German, this is called Anmeldephase. So if you don't want to translate the full page, just search for this word. Okay, and this is when you register for courses, right? And of course, you're allowed to deregister for a course if you do it early enough, right? So that means that you can typically sit in the course for a little bit. Now maybe you decide you don't like it and you want to deregister. That's fine, of course. You do all of this through PAL. This is the registration phase. The deregistration phase is called the Abmeldephase. Okay, that's the word you want to look for on this website. And again, that's done through PAL. And so, what's not uncommon is you can register for more courses than you plan to take in case many of them interest you, right? And you don't know which one to take. You could sit on all of them for a week and then you could decide, okay, I want to really do this one and maybe I want to deregister from this one. Now, as I mentioned before, there's also a separate exam registration period, okay, which usually is later than this regular course registration period. So the keyword you're looking for on this webpage is Prüfungsanmeldung, okay? And that'll tell you, the dates during which you're able to first register for the first exam period, and then there'll be a separate period for registration for the second exam period. Okay, again, you have to register during this exam period if you want to write the exam. Okay, do not forget. Okay, so that's everything I want to say about courses and registration, blah, blah, blah. Academic standards at UPB, right? So the standards are high. Okay, what does that mean? That means that certainly we don't want you to sit there and just, memorize things, to parrot them back at us. Basically, we really expect you to strive to understand the material in depth. Okay, so your professors will really kind of push this. Okay, so do expect that kind of expectation of you when you go to write the exam. Okay, that's how the exams will be written. And of course, as with any institution of higher learning, any form of cheating is absolutely a serious offense. Please don't do that. Okay, we don't want to deal with it. You don't want to deal with it. Just don't. It's not worth it. Okay. Okay, and finally, odds are you're probably coming from outside Germany because you're doing an exchange. So just some very brief tips from German culture, particularly for somebody like myself who came in from North America, right? Some things I learned quickly. So in German culture, work time is for work. Okay, so we're serious about that. And the flip side to that is relaxation time is for relaxation. Okay, so that means that vacation time is taken very seriously. Your time off is taken very seriously. The human body and mind tend to work best, most efficiently when you get time off to relax, so that next day when you go to work, you could be energized and really focus on your work for the amount of time you need to work. Okay, and that's the work ethic. Okay, and it's very efficient. It works great. Okay, people are very friendly and helpful, but if somebody does not like what you're doing, right, they will not hesitate to openly tell you this. Okay, so the first time this happens to you, you might be kind of taken aback, especially for a Canadian like myself, where Canadian culture tends to be very polite, or sometimes even overly polite, right? We'll tend to apologize even when it's our fault. German culture is not like that, right? People will be very friendly and helpful, but if you're doing something weird, wrong, they're unhappy with it, they'll let you know, don't take it the wrong way. Okay, this is really just a factual exchange of facts, if you will. And finally, something cute, but at the same time serious, don't jaywalk. Okay, meaning, don't walk across the street when the light is red. Germans very seriously frown on this. Doesn't matter if it's 2 a.m. Doesn't matter if there's nobody around. Just don't do it. Okay. There's a very good chance the person standing next to you will scold you for it. Okay. And I think you could even get tickets for it, depending on how, if you cross across the actual crosswalk when it's red, the light, I think you would actually get a ticket. But you should look that up. Don't quote me on that. Okay, but just don't jaywalk. Okay. Good. So with that said, so this slide is a little bit of a happy sad slide. I mean, normally it'd be a very happy slide, of course, because you're not just here to work, you're also here to have some fun. But as you know, now it's like COVID times, and so everything I say here is of course taken with respect to you should please follow all safety guidelines for COVID. If you want to be up to date on COVID, there are two things you can do. Number one, Paderborn itself, and I think Germany in general, but certainly Paderborn does a fantastic job of openly reporting all the numbers for confirmed cases. So just search for Paderborn COVID statistics or something like this on Google. There's a webpage, there's a graph that tells you every day, how many active cases there are and so forth. So you can always be aware of what's going on. And the German version of, the US Centers for Disease Control is called the Robert Koch Institute, RKI. And they also have up-to-date information every day. It's posted online for kind of where are the hotspots in Germany. Usually that's defined as more than 50 active cases, I believe, within the last 7 days or something like this for 100,000 population. So do be aware that, sometimes if you're coming, like let's say Paderborn were to become a hotspot, right now it's not, then if you try and go travel somewhere else, they might not let you stay at a hotel sometimes if they know you're coming from a high-risk zone, okay? So, do please follow all the guidelines, do wear masks at all times. We take it very seriously here. And, I hope you have a great time. I hope you have a chance to experience some of these things while you're here, because, German culture is really, has a lot to offer. So normally every Christmas, Germany's famous for these Christmas markets, and Paderborn is no exception. So let's see if one gets held this Christmas, of course. The summer festival, the Libori Fest, was already canceled for obvious reasons. Normally that draws something like 1 million+ visitors. The Christmas market, let's see, it's great. Nearby we have Cologne, of course, with this extremely famous cathedral, beautiful. Miraculously, it somehow survived World War II bombing. Like if you look at the pictures of World War II, right after the bombing raids, like everything around this cathedral was basically flattened, but somehow the cathedral mostly escaped undamaged. So go see that. That is worth going for. Neuschwanstein Castle is one of these. the Disney castle was basically modeled after this, right? It's not really a real castle in the sense that nobody lived in it, but it's still really worth going to see if you have the time. And finally, if you want something more kind of old school history, culture, if you will, you want to see kind of Germany, especially before the destruction of World War II, there are plenty of smaller towns that will give you exactly that. And one of my favorites is Quedlinburg because it has something like 1,400 of these half-timbered houses, basically. The city is basically intact, right? Essentially undamaged as far as I'm aware. It has a castle and so forth. So it's a UNESCO heritage site as far as I remember. So there's plenty to do, from partying, quote unquote, to castles to small villages. So if you have the chance and can do it safely under the coronavirus guidelines, of course I encourage you to enjoy your time while you're here. Again, vacation time is taken seriously, work time is taken seriously. So please do a bit of both, and yeah, have a good time. Let us know if you have any questions, and best wishes.